All right, welcome to episode 4 of the Hennhouse podcast. My name's Tyler Henn, your host, and today we're here with Jordan Armstrong. Jordan, welcome.
Thank you so much, Tyler. It means a lot.
Yeah, so you own My Relay and Marketing. Go ahead and just kind of tell us a little bit about that and who you serve and how you got into it.
Yeah, that's kind of a big story. I'll kind of give you the medium version and then I'm sure we'll kind of jump around a little bit. But I actually kind of came about it a little bit differently. I was a business major in college, but I kind of had a non-traditional way of doing it. I started and stopped college a few times. But when I did decide to actually finish it, I did a concentration in marketing. The main reason that I did that was because I was a musician, am a musician, and I was actually wanting to learn how to market my music and actually, learn how to make money from art, if you will. But I didn't really want to take music classes. I wanted to learn the business side. So I did finish my BBA and, and got a great foundation. But admittedly, it was definitely more of the classical style of business school. I didn't really have any like digital classes or anything like that, that was really focused on digital marketing at the time. But a couple of years later, I just kind of started nerding out on a bunch of podcasts and different rabbit holes and different things. And I started getting into digital marketing specifically. And I started taking some courses. But at first, I was taking courses for digital marketing for musicians. But what was kind of cool was that, the teacher would, or the instructor or whatever, would kind of be going through the course. And they'd often stop and say, okay, now this is what I mean by, a target audience, or this is what I mean by, building your customer, and then that all clicked in my head because that's, okay, that makes sense because that's what I learned in school. So I am so glad that I had that foundation so that I could, kind of build on top of it. But it was probably about, maybe longer. Coming up on 7, 8, 9 years ago, really is when I started taking some of my first, kind of classes. But things started clicking, and one thing led to another, and I did get into some e-commerce and some even for my music and selling CDs and things like that, and having learning a lot. But life kept going on, and about 3 or 4 years ago, I really started taking my relay and marketing very seriously, a lot more serious. And I kind of was doing some things for friends on the side as kind of passion projects and fun projects and things like that. But I decided that, okay, I want to invest invest some more time and effort into this and turning this into more that I get from it. So I started working with small businesses and things like that. So I look at My Relay Marketing as kind of a boutique marketing agency run by me that is in Ackworth, Georgia, that kind of has creatively driven marketing that kind of comes from an artistic mindset, but also has a business foundation. I kind of specialize in social media marketing and paid advertising, email and e-commerce and things like that. But yeah, and that's kind of the medium story of how it came to be.
Very cool. Who are kind of the main, I know you said a lot of small businesses, but you also mentioned in our prior conversations that you're working with some musicians. So what would you say is the ratio? And then how do you think that the strategies differ between say a small local business and a musician?
Yeah, there is a lot of crossover, but there are some differences for sure. A lot of musicians definitely. You kind of get the cliche music, kind of musician where it's all about the art and they don't really understand the business at all and they don't care about it and blah blah. And I don't, to some extent, that might be cliche for a reason. I think it's becoming less cliche. I think a lot of musicians are taking their art more seriously and wanting to learn how to actually make money from it. But at the same time, I'll just kind of say there's a lot of bad marketing out there, especially for musicians. So I think there's a lot of bad marketing for businesses too, but especially for musicians, it's like some of the differences is like it's all like overnight success, quick wins, get your songs, streaming, millions of times, and you're going to be a star and blah blah blah. And there's the one of the differences is between, I think a lot of musicians just kind of think like it's all or nothing, and a lot of small businesses understand that it can take time, and there's you can looking at return on investment, and sometimes it may take time to grow, but that it can grow into something that, okay, it may not be a billionaire, trillionaire, or whatever, but you can grow a business to a good size and have a good living. So there's definitely, that's probably one of the biggest differences. Right now, I'd say I'm probably 30% musician, 70% businesses. I do still run some websites for some. I do some email marketing for one in particular. But yeah, but with that said, I do just kind of nerd out on marketing in general. And I do think, again, that there's definitely overlap as well between what a business
Hmm.
needs and what an artist or a musician might need.
Hmm. So let me preface it. The artists that you work with, are they typically not marketing at all when they come to you?
It varies. I've had, a lot of it is, even if they've had some success, it's not been their own success. What do I mean by that? Is that maybe they have had some things happen in the past, and they've had some like bigger gigs, or they've made some good connections and things like that. But they don't. The biggest thing is they probably don't have like their own email list yet and stuff like that. So it's kind of like, okay, you've had some success, but you're not turning it into your own assets that you own and can keep working with and use and make money from, honestly. So that's, but don't get me wrong, I definitely, there's one musician I'm thinking of that, like went on tour and like opened for some huge bands and stuff like that. And they were in like this, band that was so close to blowing up, and they didn't, they got very close, but they didn't. He's had like some music in like like a documentary like about rare guitars, and like had some really cool stuff happen. But he was just kind of building his own website still, stuff like that. So it's across the board. There's a girl that I've worked with, and she was actually singing basically full time on Nashville on Broadway. Now,
Oh, wow.
what they call Broadway in Nashville, like the different bars and things
Hmm.
like that. And but she had built an email list, but she wasn't quite utilizing it. So yeah, so where these musicians are, is different places, but they usually, and but then again, I definitely like, one of my clients that I worked with the longest was like a metal band from like Montana, had nothing. They just were playing, but they just wanted to grow. And so yes, it can run the gamut, but most of the time it's somebody who's kind of had a little bit going on, something kind of cool, but they know they kind of need to turn that into their own marketing strategy, their own assets, and things like that.
How powerful of a marketing channel do you find email marketing to be for an artist? Because that doesn't immediately strike me as potentially powerful. And I guess my follow up question, I'll let you answer that. And my follow up question is, how would you recommend a new artist to generate a good email list?
Man, number one, email is still king. Whether or not you want, like there's a lot there. I don't know. I've kind of heard some people kind of talking it down lately, and I don't know why, but I do think I'll just kind of say this. I always kind of get the question about text, SMS versus email. Text can work, but you got to be very careful about it. But when I'm working with a musician in marketing for their email list, I'm coming at it basically as like an e-com brand, so like, but there definitely are some differences, but I'm thinking of like, it is still an extremely powerful channel where, the biggest difference between that and anything else is that you can send an email, and it's not like an intrusive, kind of feeling sometimes like a text can be. Sometimes a text can come at a very wrong time and place, and an email can come, definitely at the right place. Now there's obviously strategy behind it, and you do have to follow strategy. You definitely have to learn, kind of some things about email marketing. And definitely, like, my biggest thing that I would say for anyone, who's getting into is do not think that you sending one email means everybody opened the email and read what you have to say. And it takes multiple emails going to the same emails to get the message across. But it is extremely powerful channel because you can use the PS section. You can get people to reply. Obviously, you can track your links, and you can put links in there, and you can know if people have actually clicked things. Like it matters a lot, and it's still like very personable. It's still something that isn't intrusive, but still can be very personable. And if there was a musician who was trying to think about how to like build up their email list, I'll give a couple of different scenarios. Like if you're a musician who is kind of like playing like the cover gigs, I kind of see this as two different worlds. And kind of like if you're playing the cover gigs versus if you're like an original musician who's, playing just your own music. A lot of times there's a lot of musicians who play the cover gigs to make money, but then they play their original music for what they're trying to actually market. I do think that doing some of the smaller, quote unquote smaller things of putting QR codes on all the tables, put them in freaking table tents, make sure like with the host and manager it's okay, but like, hey, glad you enjoyed it, put there. That can also be a way to get more tips too. But have something like, hey, if you I'll give you a free sticker pack if you sign up or whatever, and blah blah. But there's different ways to approach it, for depending on what your goal is. But definitely do that. Now, if you are like just straight up playing your own music, where you're in more like a venue type thing, it is a little harder to an extent. You still want to have some like QR codes things, around just in case, definitely at your merch table and stuff like that. But, some of the better ideas that I've heard recently was like, hey, like even getting like a quote unquote cheap, which, the technology's come so long these days, but like getting like a cheap recorder and recording the your set and just saying, hey everybody, like if you like this, like we're recording this tonight, I'm going to send you the free MP3 of this whole show. Just I've got something at my desk. Just sign it. And I'll shoot it to you on my email. So here's the mic. Say the biggest swear word and we're going to record it forever. And then I'll email you the link to the show after we're done. Stuff like that. You do have to get a little bit more creative, but it is worth it. And so many, including myself. Like this took a long time to learn. Musicians do so much work to like get a gig and play a really cool venue, a really cool bar, and even sometimes they get on with other bands and it happens. People show up, but man, if like they're not gonna follow you once they leave. They're just not. They're not. You've got to make them. So. That's my rant and rave right there. Sorry if that went a little long, but
No, that was great, and I think I actually really like that idea about giving out the free recording because yeah, people, if they have a good night, they're gonna want to listen to it again. So would you say that a lot of your marketing starts when somebody happens to be at the place that your customer's playing?
it can be. I'm not scared of starting from zero. But you do have to have it probably is best. Like I'm not trying to be like a producer. I think that'd be fun, but that's
Hmm.
not what I'm trying to be right now. So like if you don't have any music recorded, there probably isn't much. Well, to an extent, there's little I can do. So like, but nowadays it's so freaking easy to get a really good recording, even basic acoustic versions and stuff like that. Like we can
Hmm.
start with that. That's fine. But you probably at least need to have something recorded.
Yeah. How I know you said that you do a lot of social media marketing stuff as well, and I feel like a lot of the content that I personally enjoy on social media is bands playing. And there's one in particular that comes to mind, and it's a band that plays in Nashville. I forgot where I think they play at Nudies,
Okay.
like weeknights, very late at like 10 p.m. They're like the last band of the day. And the drummer has this drum pad and he has all kinds of hilarious sound effects. And basically his goal is to make the singer break and just die laughing while they're playing.
Yeah.
And these videos just get millions and millions of views, and the band now has a ton of followers. And so, what kind of strategies do you take personally for content for musicians?
Yeah, this is probably one of the newest things that I feel like I'm starting to to get better at and to have a better opinion about, and is kind of, especially for artists, social media marketing. And there's, just to kind of start out, whether we're talking about business or musicians, there is a huge difference between social media management and social media marketing. And management is just like, hey, put up some cool pics and videos and all that. Awesome. That's not a bad thing. I'm not, saying that's not needed. But, social media marketing, I do make the distinction of, you're trying to get someone to take a next step, or do something. Or I don't use this word lightly. This is definitely more of a marketing word, but manipulate, but in the sense of like a doctor kind of manipulating a bone or something. Like, you're trying to push somebody to do something, whether it's something simple like just play the next video, or sign up and get their email and things like that. The biggest thing that I'm on right now with social media marketing is retargeting. And so many people say that retargeting is dead after, if you're a marketing nerd, you know about the iOS update that happened a few years ago, and everybody, freaked out, and it's pretty calmed down now. But but pixel data and stuff like that. And again, getting nerdy, so I don't know how far down. But the point that I'm making is that if nobody wants to just buy another CD. So and you're right, but they're not buying another CD. And if that's the end goal, if the end goal is to create income, or a shirt, merch, things like that, I don't, like whatever that looks like, then they've got to kind of get to know you a bit, like you kind of have to be able to keep showing up and learn a little bit more. And the odds of somebody watching one video and clicking over and buying, and saying, hey, support me, I'm a musician in Nashville, it can happen. It's not that it doesn't happen, but lightning strikes, so many places all over the world. But do you want to count on a lightning strike for everything? No. Like, we want to turn into systems. And the way that you can do that is with video. And the main thing is that you want to show someone. I kind of cringe when I say this, but so obviously I don't. There's times where there's some words that I like and some I don't. Tribe building, build your tribe, and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can kind of get a little weird about that sometimes, but I do think that is a lot. But yeah, like having a video go viral is awesome, is badass, and it can open some doors. But are they people who actually like your music? Is that the goal? But on the other side of the coin, not everybody who buys the shirt may be a fan, and that's okay. So, like, where's that middle ground, right? And I think that if you can invest some time and work with someone who can develop, some video, and of that just shows off personality, that shows off kind of your, kind of like your worldview, the stuff behind the music, why the song's important, why like how long you've known the singer, why you try to get them to mess up, things like that, on your example, like if you can kind of start putting a little bit of those aspects into it, you can create videos, and Meta will let you retarget people who watch a certain percentage of your video. So I'm definitely more in the camp of, let's talk about kind of the big picture, like your worldview, who's your people who are going to like your music. And it's not even really about having the song play. Even I've seen success with literally talking about it, or talking about the band, or talking about their approach on songwriting, and talking about their heroes, their musical heroes, and things like that. But then taking that and retargeting those people and saying, okay, I'm going to go back and find the people who have watched, 25, 50% of this video at least, if not longer. And I'm going to start showing up more and more and more. And that's the overall tactic that I'm mostly following, that's closest to my heart right now, if you will,
Okay. So you're more focused on, I'll go back to that phrase you don't like, of creating that tribe, more so than just showing up, going viral for the sake of going viral.
Yeah, I don't think it's a good idea. I mean, if you want to try for that, but that's definitely not. I don't think you need to. I don't, man. Like, I think you can spend a few $100s a month and create like very regular income and have nothing go viral. and
Hmm.
find people who care about your music, who actually care about what you're going to do next, who actually care about your next song that you're going to release, and things like that, rather than finding the next funny video that they're going to scroll through, you know?
Hmm.
And I think that's the difference. Like, I think that a lot of musicians, especially nowadays, are more in the content creator camp, and that's cool. And if that's you, you know what I mean. I'm not in that camp, and it doesn't mean that there aren't things about it that I can learn from and that I can appreciate and that I do take note of. Don't get me wrong. I'm not disparaging it by any means, but I do think that there is still a lane where if you want to build up a list of people who actually care about your music, who will invest into your next recording, your next things like that, that by using advertising, even at smaller budgets, it's so much easier these days.
Hmm. Yeah, and that approach really isn't that far off from SEO, because really what my goal is when I'm obviously trying to target keywords and get people to come to a particular website. But a super bad trust signal for Google is if somebody clicks onto your site and goes, that's not what I wanted, and clicks back off. Google knows that we call that pogo sticking or bouncing. And so it would be the same thing. Like I can even use a band as an example. If somebody sees one of those funny videos on Instagram and is like, oh, this is hilarious, and they go and Google that band and go on their website and they're deadpan serious, they're like, oh, they're not even that funny. They're just trying to get views. Gone.
Yep.
So I definitely see where you're coming from on building up people who actually want to know, where are they going? Are they going to be on tour? I want to come. I want to see them.
Hmm.
I want to buy their shirts because I like the band, not because it's a cool shirt. I think that's a really cool approach.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. I do think that it is something to consider where you're kind of staking your tent. Like, are you kind of being content creator where you're just trying to make funny videos and
Hmm.
do affiliate sales or whatever, but or are you building like a brand, or your music and things like that. But yeah,
Hmm.
I mean, before we kind of turned on, you kind of talked about a little bit about what you do with the SEO. I'm actually kind of curious myself how, like searching like Chat GPT and stuff like that. What does that do for you, and how do you see that in the businesses that you're working with right now, especially AI side?
Are you talking about as far as where I think SEO is going
Yeah.
with AI models? Okay, yeah, it's a great question. It's a huge topic right now. So basically, the only difference is right now, if I Google metal band Georgia, it's going to show me the top result that Google has decided, and that's based off of, is there a page on the website about a metal band in Georgia, and are they trusted basically by other people? So if 10 of the top music critics in the southeast of the USA are saying this is the best metal band in Georgia, that gives a lot of trust to Google, and it's very likely that that website or that band is going to show up on the top. Now, the way that LLMs differ, like Gemini, ChatGPT, Claude, is that when you ask ChatGPT, what's the best metal band in Georgia, it's going to reword that question about 10 to 15 different ways, Google it, and then deliver you a summarization of the results. And so it's going to look up best new metal band, best punk metal band, best black metal band. It's going to look up all these different things. And so where people get disconnected is that it's you have to be ranking well for all the keywords instead of just the one keyword. And so it's having a variety of content. I mean, obviously, if you're not a new metal band, you're not going to be talking about that. But it's basically elongating whatever the initial search query was and then asking it in a bunch of different ways. And so you can actually show up one day and not show up the next day because between the two people that asked, ChatGPT reworded the questions in different ways that you're not necessarily ranking for. And so that's why people are saying like, oh, SEO is dead and all this stuff. Well, it's still the same SEO concepts, and there are ways to figure out what is ChatGPT actually asking. You can actually go into inspect element and see what it asked. It's a little harder on ChatGPT, but like on Perplexity and I think on Grok, it's really easy. Like you just click into the thinking tab where like in the actual chat and it'll show you what it Googled. And they pretty much all use Google in some form. And so it really just goes back to doing good SEO. I don't really like the new acronyms like AEO and GEO, I think it's like people want to believe that it's something completely different, and it's really not. So I'm continuing to write expansive, helpful content for my customers, and it's going great. I had somebody call me personally yesterday. It's funny because I'm a very firm believer that networking is pretty much still king. Like if you're in the right room shaking the right hands, you're going to get great clients. And it's all about who you know. They say your network is your net worth. And so I had on Nick Garofalo yesterday. He is a financial advisor, kind of with some biblical based values and stuff like that, like ethical investing, like not investing in Nike because they use children to make the shoes and stuff like that, which is not biblical. Anyway, we were talking yesterday and he said that it was interesting that I push SEO and social media and all these marketing channels that affect SEO, but almost all of my customers have come from networking. That is kind of ironic. And I was like, well, SEO is a long game, and it compounds over time. And my website is still relatively new in Google's eyes. Like there's 30-year-old websites now that just have so much authority. And so my website's probably a year old. And literally, probably 45 minutes after we got off of our podcast yesterday, somebody calls me and says, hey, I have this business and I saw that you do websites and I wanted to see, what it looks like and what's your process. And so we talked and I asked him, well, how'd you find me, by the way, just out of curiosity? And he said, oh, I asked ChatGPT and it said you were the best SEO company in Georgia. And I was like, no kidding. Like but it's funny how the world works like that too, isn't it?
That's so funny, man.
So
That's
it's really
awesome.
cool. And that's just because, I talk about all the services I provide in depth, in detail on my website. And it just happened that the way that he asked the question, ChatGPT thought that I was the best option.
Hmm.
And so it's just,
Is it? Are you kind of hinting more at when you say like writing things? Like my mind goes to like blogs and things like that. Do you look at
mhm.
it like that, or is that a little bit too similar or too narrow, if you will?
Yeah. So I don't, most of my clients, I don't have a blog section on their website because I don't like the word blog in 2026. I think I look more at what is the intent behind the search. And so I'm always thinking top of funnel, bottom of funnel, sorry, top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom of funnel content. And so I'll use a roofing company as an example because I have multiple roofing clients. So if somebody Googles what are shingles made of, they're not necessarily wanting to purchase a roof. Their roof isn't necessarily damaged, and they're just curious. Now, if that question is answered by a roofing company's website, then they may remember that roofing company for down the line. But that's not necessarily a search that's going to generate a lead. And that's fine. Middle of funnel stuff is like who let's say Latino owned roofing companies near me. Then you're basically comparing companies that meet your criteria. And then a bottom of funnel would be like emergency roof repair, open 24/7. Or if somebody went on ChatGPT and wrote, a tree just fell through my roof and there's water pouring into my home, who can fix it right now? And so those are all different kinds of intensive keywords. So it's informational, transactional, which is, no, sorry, not transactional, informational, which is like what are shingles made of? Commercial, which is basically you are starting to consider making that purchase, but you're shopping around, you're weighing your options. And then transactional, which is like, I need this thing right now, or I have my money in my hand, please take it. Like whoever is number one, I'm probably going to go with you. And so I look at traditional blogs as mostly being informational intent, which most of those keywords are a lot higher search volume, but they're a lot harder to rank for.
Mm.
And so I am typically trying to target bottom of funnel keywords because there's a higher likelihood that that's going to generate a lead or a conversion, and they're typically easier to rank for.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I mean, I definitely. There's a couple of things that come to my mind of like like content is king, and it's just like putting out even like coming back to my world of a little bit more of like social media of like putting out one video and hoping that it does the work is just insane, and one thing that I'll just be honest, even with my business clients too, that I'm like, listen, like it takes, and I think this is a little bit more directly of where I want to go with this statement of, I think that a lot of people and consumers have gotten smarter about things, even the more, you know, the consumer who isn't necessarily, computer savvy, but they do know, some differences between an ad and different things. And this the point that I'm making is that it takes so much more. It's not a bad thing, but it does take more than one ad, more than one, post, more than one thing to pull this. I like to think I love funnels, but I am kind of stealing this from one of my main gurus. I don't, I am not affiliated. I am not, whatever. What's the word I'm trying to say?
Sponsored.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not connected to this person, but one of my favorite marketing gurus is Laurel Portier, and affiliated. Again, just somebody I personally like. And but one of the many main things I've taken from her is a funnel. Everybody thinks of it as like, it makes sense, right? It is. It's big at the top, little at the bottom. But how people kind of think that you get a ton at the top and you push it down, you get less and less and less. And really, the kind of thinking that has helped me so much tremendously is invert it. Put the funnel sideways, or maybe even like this, where it's big here and little here. What are you doing to pull the people through the funnel? And that's just kind of that's my mindset for, especially recently. It's just like, it's not about just getting all the clicks. It's not about just getting, like you were saying, it's not about getting those high intent words yet that are, a lot of people are clicking on them, but do they actually go anywhere? And it's you have to create your own momentum that actually pulls people through these days.
Yeah. Now, you're a musician yourself.
Yeah.
What instrument do you play?
Oh, guitar, of course, and do some singing and play a little harmonica. My favorite musicians were mostly 60s and 70s folk rockers and different bands. There definitely are some modern bands I love, don't get me wrong, but yeah, I got, whenever I got the songwriting bug, it was the Bob Dylan, Neil Young, were my.
Oh, you're a songwriter.
Yeah, so
Okay.
It's not a muscle I've flexed a lot recently, but it is something that I've invested, in before. So I do try to practice what I preach. I fully admit, my life, I've got 2 kids now, and I'm just not as invested into it right now, but it's there. It's on the back burner. It's going to happen again. So
yeah. So I know that we talked a little bit before this, and you said that being a musician yourself taught you a lot about marketing. Can you kind of speak to that?
Yeah, no, I think that one of the bigger things that, musicians can do well is connect, and storytell. And, especially when you're trying to differentiate yourself, and a lot of businesses have this issue as well, but especially musicians, they have this chip on their shoulder where they don't want to admit who they really sound like, sometimes, or like they don't want to like admit like, like how much they, took from another band or whatever, and I'm kind of being a little facetious, but also kind of blowing it a little bit up a little bit more, but than it really is sometimes. But with that said, but at the heart, the better you can get at like telling your story and figuring out like the meaning behind songs and things like that, and figuring out why a song kind of makes somebody get moved a certain way or something, whether it's really happy or sad or anywhere in between, right? I think the better songwriter, the better, especially songwriter perspective, you be. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. There is obviously the technical musical side, but there's also just the gut feeling of stuff too. Just figuring out, kind of letting it flow a little bit. And where I really connected with marketing, with songwriting especially, was when I was trying to connect the dots between who I am as a songwriter, what kind of what world I'm kind of coming from, what kind of worlds I'm trying to create, if you will, and that's still kind of broad, but it still is still a good thing. It's still something that a practice that, whether you're a musician or a business, it still helps. There's a lot of places that sell burgers. What makes your burger different, right? Like there's a lot of places that There's a lot of musicians. There's a ton of people who can play the same song. You know, what makes yours a little different? You know, what is it? Your voice? Is it your, yeah, your ability to talk in between songs? Is it your stage presence? Is it your lyrics? Is it a combination of these things? Usually so. And I think that helped me a lot when I started trying to figure out, okay, like what is going to help me stand out in a very busy, murky world of music, especially.
I do think, yeah, I think some of my favorite artists that I've gone and seen repeatedly, like in different cities across the country, one thing they all have in common is that they're so good at keeping the crowd engaged between songs, and they tell stories that are either just so compelling in some way, either you're laughing so hard or it's sad, and it leads in, and that's why I wrote this song, and then you hear the song. It's like queuing up each song or putting a ribbon on it at the end that I think it makes the whole experience so much better. I do think, I mean, that's marketing in itself because it creates a memorable experience when you leave and you're like, man, not only did he write beautiful songs, but he explained I mean, basically his creative process. One of my favorite artists, I doubt you've heard of him because he's not very famous, but his name's Charlie Mars, and he's out of, I don't know if he's out of Texas, but he toured with one of my favorite artists who's out of Austin, Texas, Bob Schneider, and he tells these stories just so in depth. Like he has this song that he wrote when he was living in some random guy's mansion on a beach somewhere and like walking. Just I'm rambling, but it's really cool, and I immediately thought of that when you started talking about that. So I think that's a powerful tool in itself, being able to speak about your work and your creative process with conviction and keep the audience engaged the whole night.
Yeah, I think I'll kind of segue it if I can between
Hmm.
business and music. It's just it's so many. If old Jordan could go back and talk to young Jordan, it's like there's so much. Especially if you're focusing on original music, where you're trying to write your own music. So many people think that practicing the song is what's needed, and practicing playing. Don't get me wrong, that is part of it, but this, if I could tell anything, one of the main things I'd say would be practice the show. Practice what you're going to say between the songs. Practice what the drummer's going to do. Like that's what you practice. And like I just, like as I've gotten older and trying to get wiser, and let's just say trying to get less dumb, that I, realize, like this, in it's not just the song, it is the experience, it is the before and after, it's what happens once that song ends, it's how you start the next song, it's what you're going to say, and just don't leave it up to chance. And segue that into business, like everybody, doing the job, and presenting like a wonderful, grass cut, or brand new roof, and that's it, you know what I mean? But like there's just so much more that goes into getting to that place.
Hmm.
And whether it's follow up, and then maybe even having like referral systems, and just getting a little nerdy into like thank yous, and like, man, that stuff goes far, like those thank you
Hmm.
emails and those thank you cards, and things like that, man, that stuff goes far.
Yeah, 100%. I sold roofs for a couple years, and in 2023, I was very fortunate. I sold about 86 roofs all in the same neighborhood in down in Sharpsburg, Noonan area. And in December, I went down there. We hand wrote 86 cards, and I knocked on every single door and personally handed them to the people that answered, and stuck it in the door for the people that
That's
didn't.
awesome.
And everyone was like, "Oh man, you didn't have to do that." I was like, "Well, I mean, this neighborhood has been something huge, special part of my life. Really, really cool neighborhood. It's all like airline pilots and
Yeah.
Chick-fil-A corporate
Yeah.
people and like field marshals or air marshals, I mean, like just cool people. Everyone had cool stories. I just learned so much about, just people. And that's one part that I love of sales is that you get to meet a lot of people, a lot of good people.
Yeah, man. I haven't done quite the direct sales. I've been on the inside sales a little bit more. I've done a little bit,
Hmm.
but you could probably, do a lot more than I could. I'm not that good direct. But with that said, just I've always known and believed. I've been around sales, and like, dude, you go to like a sales convention or something like that, dude, those people are crazy fun. I mean, just nuts
Hmm.
fun, fun, fun. Usually, don't get me wrong. There's the sad, there is the people, the crappy people as well, like everything. But
Yeah, yeah. Some of those high pressure guys are hard to be around. But
yeah,
I actually talked about that in episode one of this show with Nathan Patterson. We talked about finding you got to find your sales style if you want to be able to stick with it because you can't pretend to be someone that you're not for. I mean, you can, but you can only do it for so long, and people can feel that inauthenticity. So
man,
it's like
you're
when I sit down with somebody, I'm going to explain to you, and I tell them, I sit down with this and I say, the reason I like to meet with people in person is because I'm going to show you exactly what I do, how I do it, and why it works. I'm going to show you the exact data points that I look at that are a measure of success or the alternative. And I'm going to send you that every month, regardless, with a game plan for whichever way. If we're not doing great, I'm going to tell you how we're going to do better. If we're doing great, I'm going to tell you how we're going to do greater. And people appreciate that.
yeah. I totally agree. And in this world of AI that we're getting into, and I'm actually not like I do have some obvious concerns, but I am actually a proponent of it in general.
Hmm.
Not to get too far into some left field thing, but but my point is just that. But at the end of the day, the more you can connect with customers, and it's just like every single AI app that's coming out is just like even further away, taking you further away from an actual conversation. And it's just
Hmm.
like you've got to get back and use these tools to help you have more conversations with people. That's how
Yeah.
you start making money. At least I hope. That's what I'm working on.
Yeah. Yeah, I think real experiences are going to become a the most important thing because there's going to be more and more novelties. I want to go back real quick because we were talking about kind of how cool it is to be able to give a good full experience, not just the music, and that's something that I think a good musician is really good at. And so, what else do you think that small businesses can learn from musicians and vice versa?
No, great question. And I do want to segue because I love small business, and my heart
Hmm.
is with them. I've always kind of had an entrepreneurial itch, and it's something that now that I'm scratching it a little harder, it's like the best thing in the world for me. So
Hmm.
I just have such a heart for them. They're just such gold people, and they're working their asses off. With that said, the things that is the obvious one is the storytelling. Get used to get used to more comfortable talking about you, the person, not just the business. And a lot of people like to know who they're buying from. And if you can show your family, if you're comfortable. I mean, again, this is all relative to what you're comfortable with and all that. But I mean, seriously, I mean, I know it's a family affair with so many small businesses. If you can talk about, it's more than just we have 5-star Google ratings. You know what I mean? Like talk, about one of those reviews, and all that. And the more that you can personalize and create kind of that connection, and that's what I'm after. To kind of go back to my original, where we actually were talking about email and things like that. And email, kind of feels like it's not, it doesn't come across as being very personal, but it can be. And sometimes, but across the board, all of this digital marketing, it's whether it is SEO or social media management, or what marketing or whatever. I think it's again ringing that bell back towards, showing more of yourself, showing more of the reasons why you're in the business, what it means, and your work and things like that will serve you more than just making another Chat GPT flyer with the same logo as everybody else. Even if
Hmm.
you've been doing this for a while, even if you have, but if you're looking to grow, let people see who you are.
Hmm.
Let them kind of see, and let them kind of look at how you can build your own tribe, if you will, to some extent. Again, I'm not fully connected to that word, but that's the word I'm using right now. But
Yeah.
for lack of better words.
Yeah, I think it's fitting for what we're talking about as far as an experience and all that. Now you build websites for customers as well, correct?
I do, yeah.
Hmm.
I'll go ahead and fully admit this. I don't consider myself a designer. I am definitely more about building like landing pages and websites, for action taking. Like I'm trying to get like an email sign up or, or phone numbers and things like that. But
Hmm.
not to go on and on, but yes, I do and
Yeah.
can build websites as well.
Okay. So, but you would say that your landing page would be more focused on conversion up after maybe a paid acquisition than an organic acquisition, correct?
Yeah, if I think I understand what you're saying, and if I am, I
Hmm.
think my answer would be yes. The way that I'm getting people in my funnel is usually through social media and things like that most of the time. So the
Okay.
the website, I want it to look awesome and badass and cool and everything like that, but I am more concerned with getting that traffic over in order to take an action like signing up or something like that.
Hmm. And are you doing paid ad campaigns, or is this would be from a post that they saw and you would hope that they would make it to the website and sign up for something or purchase something?
No, I definitely paid ads. I
Okay.
mean, again, the difference between social media management, social media marketing management, putting out the cool stuff. But again, ads is where you know I think a lot of people say they do social media and they may use the word marketing, but if they're not spending money behind it and they're just hoping something goes viral, like I don't, whatever, but like again, just to reiterate and to answer your very good question of my opinion is that putting even a few $100s a month behind social media marketing advertising and actually spending dollars can result in much greater return than just kind of posting and hoping, if you will.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and the reason that I asked that too, where is the traffic coming from, is because for me personally, some of my customers, I do SEO and I do paid, and a lot of my paid landing pages I literally have set to for Google to not even index them
Mm,
because I don't want people landing on those because I want a smooth transition from whatever the creative or advertisement was to where they land on the page. They know exactly why they're on that page and they're not losing any context.
mm-hmm.
And the strongest example of that is with one of my roofing companies. I'm testing ChatGPT ads, which they were in kind
Beta.
of like closed testing, and now
Yeah.
they've come out, and it's very interesting where there's no pixel or retargeting yet, and that the statistics or the analytics that you get back are actually very limited. But what's cool about the way that they work is that you give context hints to the campaign that basically says, show us if people are asking about this particular thing. And the even cooler thing is that if you're not already organically being recommended by ChatGPT, an ad won't change that.
Hmm.
So ChatGPT has to think that you're good regardless, and then it'll show you in an ad on a related conversation. And so with my roofing company, basically we're doing something like if somebody is looking for a roof quote in Metro Atlanta, it's obviously more context than that, but just to be broad here. And then the landing page literally says you're most likely here because you were talking with ChatGPT and you wanted a roof quote, or you're exploring whatever. So when they land on the page, they know exactly why they landed on that page.
Right.
And so we're obviously still testing context hints and targeting and all this kind of stuff because it is very limited. But it's been a really interesting experiment, and I'm hoping that it ends up being like 2012 Facebook ads or something
Oh
like that,
man.
where I'm ahead of the curve. And so I'm trying to learn it now. And luckily, I have a customer who's been gracious enough to let me use his money
Yeah.
to try to learn it.
Well, it may
And
be ahead
so
of the curve for him too if it works out. So,
yeah, absolutely. Well,
yeah.
I explained the whole premise to you. I said, look, you're already getting recommended every day by ChatGPT. Why don't we just try this with a little bit? And he was like, oh yeah, turn it on. I was like,
Right.
cool. So and
Yeah.
it's been interesting. We had definitely have had some issues. I didn't realize that couldn't you can target by city, most main cities, by state, or by country. And I had it set to United States, and I didn't realize that I had it set to United States and that would show it to other states too. So we were getting leads from like Massachusetts, and I
Man.
was like, So even though it said Metro Atlanta area, it would still show it to Massachusetts if it thought that they were asking the right question.
Right.
And so PSA, you have to make sure that you set the right state because the
Oh my
context hint is
goodness.
not enough to target the people that you want to.
I'm so interested. I hope I'm
It's
definitely
really
going to be
cool.
following you to see how this goes. If you're willing to
Yeah,
share
yeah.
with me
I'll
for
send you
sure.
some videos that I watched too to learn about it
Yeah,
after this if you're interested because it's really cool
yeah,
and could be great for music because it's if somebody's looking for like give me band recommendations that are like jazz mixed with funk mixed with bossa nova, like super specific stuff, and you have a customer that meets that, then it's like check these guys out. They're pretty cool. And you could just link to their YouTube channel or their Spotify or any link.
that's so
So
cool.
definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I don't know where I was going to go.
I actually just wanted to commend you on your landing page because I mean, so much, and I don't, I'm not throwing any particular person, but anyway, so much bad marketing goes towards a link that goes to the website. You know what I mean? And it's
Hmm.
just like, dude, like it's not even it's maybe has like a logo or a something on it, and it doesn't actually like help move them along at all. So I just
Yeah.
wanted to commend you on that.
Yeah, well, thanks. Well, and there's so many places where you can lose someone along the way. So you could type the URL wrong for the page on meta ads. The copy can be wrong, the creative can be wrong. When they get to the landing page, do they feel like they're in the right place or do they
Yeah,
feel like they're in the wrong place? Does your submit button work? And like people don't realize like because a lot of people I also got super excited when you said that you're tracking attribution and stuff because people don't and then they're doing 10 kinds of marketing and they don't know what's working because they don't have any attribution tracking. But I go even as far with some of my customers as to I don't know if you've ever used Post Hog before, but it's unbelievable. So it basically allows you to set up custom events on a website or an app. And so I can literally track every step of a contact form where it would say they filled out their first name, they filled out their last name, they didn't fill out their email, and they left. And it
that's
tells me all these things and it shows it in literally a funnel. And if something seems weird, I can click on that event and I can watch the actual recording of that person actually on the
whoa.
website. And so, and you can find crazy stuff like that where it's like, man, I have an 18% click through rate on this creative, which for anyone who may not know, that would be unbelievable. Like that would
Yeah,
be crazy
yeah,
if it was converting.
yeah.
And nobody's calling me when they get to the website. And then all of a sudden you go on Post Hog and you watch these recordings and your button doesn't work.
Holy cow,
So it's like you're trying to submit and it's not getting submitted. And
man.
so it just helps you like the more that you can track and the more data points that you can have, the better that you can optimize. And so like you can literally go as far as I know people always joke about like, oh, the button color is the problem.
Yeah,
That's like the oldest joke in the UX book. And my degree is actually UX. So
wow.
but there's all kinds of stuff like that. Like somebody might think something's a button and it's not. And post hog will tell you like, oh, this person was rage clicking. Like that's actually an event that it shows where it's like they kept clicking this thing thinking it was supposed to do something and it did nothing. And so that's like, well, of course we're going to lose conversions on that because the person's confused.
Wow.
And I read this great book in college called Don't Make Me Think by Stephen Krug. And it just basically was a couple 100-page book about like when somebody interacts with any digital product that you create, they should never have to second guess what anything does. Like
Hmm.
they should already know when I click this button, this is what's going to happen. And so you want to remove all friction from any process, especially a conversion process,
Hmm.
because it's the more friction that you have, the more drop off you're going to have. And
Yeah.
so tracking that is a really great way to try to lower that as much as you can.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. No, that thank you for sharing all that. I'm super interested. So yeah, offline, I'll look for that link.
Yeah.
What about when things don't go well? But I think you kind of actually just kind of talked about it, like using that tool, that will help you figure some of those things out. But I would maybe like to dig a little deeper with you. Like, okay, you're starting a campaign, and it's not going well. Like,
Hmm.
where do you start looking? I know that's
Yeah.
kind of
So
broad, but
no, it's a good question, and I'll do from a paid perspective and from an organic perspective, and I'll start with organic because that's my favorite. So I'm always trying to target keywords that I think will best bring conversions to that customer or leads at the very least. And there's so many good tools now. Like I personally use Ahrefs, which is a keyword research tool. So I try to find keywords that have a moderately high search volume and are underserved on Google, and that is a keyword difficulty. And so I try to find low keyword difficulty and high search volume. That's basically Google saying, we don't have enough people talking about this. Please talk about this. And so my ideal keyword would be low keyword difficulty, high search volume, and transactional search intent. Means there's not enough pages talking about this, and people want to spend money on this thing. So please give us that. And so that's definitely what I try to do there. And luckily, SEO, people act like SEO is some crazy, like there's so many factors that affect it, and there are, but there's really only two main things. And the most important thing, and people, I mean, you can change your life with this. Pick a keyword that you want to rank for. Do what I just said. So high intent, low keyword difficulty, high search volume. Make a page about that. Make the meta title of the page that keyword or include it. Put it in the H1 tag, the main header that tells Google what the page is about, and mention it in the first sentence on the page. That will give Google so much context that you're trying to rank for that. And then try to build a couple links to it. So are you familiar with backlinks?
A little bit, I am, yeah.
Yeah. So it's really hard, and they are so valuable because they're so hard to get, real ones. And people buy them all the time, and Google knows when you have an unnatural backlink profile. So don't do that either. Do like digital PR, reach out to journalists, build relationships over time, and try to build links from higher authority websites to your website. But here's the kicker: if that website isn't passing traffic to your site through that link, it's not worth much. So like if Forbes is talking about MyRelay Marketing, about how you guys are the best marketing company for artists, and you're getting 10,000 clicks a month from their website to yours, your entire website's going to get blown out of the water organically. Now, if you buy like a random link from some blog, like music blog in Finland, and then the page isn't even indexed on Google, you wasted your money. And that's really the only main two factors. So it's like, it's either when it comes to if something's not working on organic, it's okay, we're not talking about the keyword enough, and it has to be natural too, because you can't just go write like marketing, 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 marketing and show up on Google. They know. Or you don't have enough authority on that topic. And so maybe you need to find an easier keyword or a variation of it and stuff like that. And then on the paid side, it kind of goes back to what I was saying before. And I always tell people too, like, I would probably have a couple grand ready to just to give Facebook some data, because it's not going to know exactly who your ideal audience is right away. And so like I always tell people, and a lot of it's really how you frame it up front too. Like I would never say like, all right, let's spend $100 a day and you're going to be rich next week. That doesn't exist. And so it takes a long time, it takes a lot of retargeting, it takes a lot of hits, like you said earlier. Like it's multiple touches in any marketing channel pretty much to actually make that conversion usually. And so a lot of it's just how you frame it to the customer and being transparent, showing them what's going on and how you're going to do better in the future, or how you're going to continue doing great.
Cool. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to just kind of end on, number one, thank you. But
Yeah.
if
Thank
you have any
you.
questions or anything, but I still, if anyone from my relay, obviously I love talking about artists and music marketing, but, of course, I love small business the same. So if anyone's in either world, I would love to talk to them.
Awesome. Yeah, Jordan, thank you for coming on so much. And I'm Tyler Henn. I own Hennhouse Digital Growth Studio, and I mostly do websites and SEO, but all kinds of digital marketing that gets you seen more on Google and other search engines. So, Jordan, thank you again, and we will see you guys in episode 5.